Hello, I'm Nick Trott and I'm the editor of Evo magazine, and today I have with me Ryan, who is the assistant editor of denofgeek.com. Now Ryan, what are we going to talk about today?
Well, we're here today to talk about cars, chases, crossing the line, movies and more cars.
Okay Ryan, let's talk about the Bourne Supremacy. Now things get serious here, don't they? This is a really intense car chase through the centre of Moscow. But give us some context, what's happened up until this point in the film?
Okay, so Matt Damon plays Jason Bourne, who's he's an amnesiac agent who's kind of finding out about his past gradually. And throughout the beginning of the film, it established the villain, who's played by Carl Urban.
Yeah.
The character's name is Kirill.
Yep.
There's a kind of hatred between them from the very beginning because Kirill's killed Bourne's girlfriend.
Right.
And then eventually the action shifts to Moscow, and Kirill's still in hot pursuit, and he's shot Matt Damon in the shoulder. Damon gets in a taxi, and they're off. The chase is on.
It's where it kind of gets interesting from a kind of petrol head's perspective, because Kirill's in a G-Wagon, which you wouldn't pick as a car chase vehicle at all, very high centre of gravity, so they roll around quite a lot. Very heavy, not great performance, you know, all the kind of stuff that you wouldn't really want in your car chase vehicle. But then Mr. Bourne is in probably something even more unlikely, which is a taxi. It's a Volga, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, a Volga. But yeah, you're right, he's got this wound, doesn't he? So he's just been shot. And it's funny because at the beginning of the chase, he's kind of really multitasking, isn't he, Jason Bourne? So he looks at a map, so he's driving, he's looking at a map, not concentrating on the road, and then he checks his wound out. Yeah. And then he pours a load of vodka on it. Yeah. And then he seems to be like, he's energised, then he's off. Yeah. You know, he's prepared to go. So tell us what happens from that point forward.
It's basically a chase through Moscow, through it looks like rush hour. I mean, a lot of films, they cheat a little bit. They'll kind of shoot it at 5 in the morning when there are, fewer cars on the road or whatever. This is proper built-up traffic, and Bourne's just trying to kind of thread his way through the chaos as best he can, and not always succeeding. No. Which is a kind of significant thing in this film, especially it's in the first one as well, but more so in this one, I think, where the cars are properly getting smashed up. They're kind of grazing each other. They're kind of
that gives it it gives it some authenticity, I think, because he just will not give up, will he? I mean, you sense from the very beginning of this chase that he's going to do anything he can. So
and he's the underdog as well, which kind of gives it that kind of dramatic edge, because he's very much in the kind of less heavy car, if nothing else. If you're talking about ramming into each other, and he's wounded. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, and he's always clipping the other traffic. But yeah, that claustrophobia, you get that. You get that sense of the kind of performance driving between the traffic. That's pretty impressive. Even if we know that it's staged, and it obviously is. If you're going at that speed and there is genuine speed involved, to be able to manoeuvre yourself around in vehicles that don't really want to perform those sort of manoeuvres, it's really impressive. I think also something I really like is the way that the director slows down the action at certain points. So it's really, really intense, and then there's a moment where it sort of slows down and then it speeds up again. And the first example of that's really, really good from my point of view. It's where the taxi goes around a corner and then it gets into a drift. And then the camera just lingers on it as it goes through a drift, and it's a beautiful drift. It's really nicely done. And then the action sort of speeds up again, and you think that might be a kind of a template of sort of car chases, subsequently. Yeah, that's a technique that's been used.
Oh yeah, and I think it's definitely a hallmark of Paul Greengrass. That he did Bloody Sunday before this, which was the film that got him this gig. They noticed the way that he directs with handheld cameras. It's very immediate, very in the moment, and it's a style that's been copied a lot. But I don't think anybody does it quite as well as he does, because he kind of treads that line between kind of clarity and then something that just looks like they've just caught it. The camera hadn't been there, it'd been gone forever.
Been gone. Yeah. Well, there's some key moments, aren't there? I think leading up to the conclusion, there's the point where they're kind of driving through a narrow street, and then suddenly they're onto some like multi-carriageway road, and that's extraordinary, because you're just not expecting that. And then he manages to manoeuvre his car so that it's one of the baddest cars gets struck.
That's right, yeah, because he makes good use of a bendy bus at one point. which I think, I always wondered what they were for.
Yeah.
And obviously it's to get away from Carl Urban.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of building up pace and it's coming towards the kind of the end. So how are we led into this sort of mighty climax for the car chase?
Well, appropriate enough, it goes the chase gets darker when it goes into the tunnel.
Yeah.
Because by this point, Carilla's well and truly, neck and neck with Bourne.
Yeah.
He's obviously determined to kill him by fair means or foul.
Yeah.
And also, it's often the case in car chases that, it's established that the villain doesn't care who he injures in the process. And you do see several, civilian cars get kind of totaled as they're ploughing through this tunnel. But then ultimately, as you see in a lot of chases, it's his aggression that kind of gets turned against him.
Yeah, so he manoeuvres his car into position so he can turn the G-Wagon around.
Yeah,
sort of gets it at 90 degrees from the front, which again, analysing the physics of the car, I think the first thing the G-Wagon would have done if it was being pushed into that position, probably the tyres would have rolled off the rim and the rim would have dug in the ground and it would have flipped over, so, or there'd have been a puncture or something like that, so, but actually the car sort of is pushed along the side, isn't it? And then suddenly you notice that it's all going to end very badly.
Yeah, unfortunately, even the superior build quality of a Mercedes can't account for a collision with a concrete pillar.
No.
And it's curtains for poor Carilla.
And it's game over.
Yeah.
So Jason Bourne and the quaint Volga taxi.
Bless him. He's plucky little Volga.
Yeah.
Wins the day.
I'm rooting more for the car than for him towards the end of
yeah. How much pain can his car go through?
No, it's a good chase, isn't it? Really intense.
One of the most classic, I think. Yeah, modern classic, that one.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.